is Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all at once. So we can start to see comments coming in, and I think we're live. Hey guys, I think some of you are streaming, listening in right now. Welcome to the show. So this is the latest episode of Business and Beer. Today we have with us Benjamin, Lambert, and just a quick round of introduction. My name is Alvin Poe. And in summary, I started a tech company with $0, scaled it up to $30 million, sold it, and then traveled the world full-time for 2 years. Now I'm back and I'm coaching entrepreneurs to scale their businesses as well. Today we have Benjamin Lambert, who's joining us all the way from Lisbon. Ben's a really cool friend of mine. And his background is really interesting. He is an entrepreneur as well, and he's done so much. He had a global communications startup, 2 of them, right, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, I was working with 2 large communication startups, which we scaled across the world. So yeah.
All right, so 2 of them. You've also built and deployed technology products in over 10 countries. He's also had multiple investments. And you are also part of an incubator that is running in Portugal, right?
Yeah. So I started an incubator here in Portugal. So we started 22 impact-focused businesses over the previous 18 months. I actually left the incubator back the end of last year.
Sweet. All right, let's talk all about that, because one of the things that I think a lot of people are interested in is the power of networking and this concept of multipliers. So let's dive into that. But
Sure.
First, the beers for today. Today we have a session ale because it's 4:30 and I'm going to start a bit slow. This is a session ale that's brought to you by artisanselections.com. So if you guys like nice beer from Australia, go check them out. All right, let's dive into it.
And if you like a nice ginger tea, then that's what's happening over in Lisbon.
Yeah, I should really change the name of the show to Business and Beverage. But, oh well.
No, it's just beer at 8:30 in the morning. It's probably even a bit too much for European standards. So.
All right, man. Like I said, it's always 8 p.m. anywhere in the world, somewhere in the world.
That's true. Well, actually, like it's interesting to like start the power of networking chat maybe around the fact that, you know, the way that we met, right? Like we met because you were traveling, as you say, and you found yourself in Portugal, and
Yes.
you're part of a network of entrepreneurs and so am I, by the way. Part of a few, but I'm not part of the same one as Alvin. But we met because of the overlap of the different, I guess, the different networks that we created, right? So
Yeah.
we're part of.
I love that, and it's something that always astounds me, right? Like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have never imagined that I would have a buddy in Portugal. Like, what are the chances? I don't even know, like, if I know somebody from like the west side of Singapore, much less like all the way in Europe. So it just boggles the mind, and I am so thankful that we are connected. And I think it's a trend that we're starting to see play out, not just in like business connections, but connections throughout the world. The friendships that we develop aren't necessarily geographically limited. We don't just have friends that are interested in the hobbies that we have that's living 5 minutes away. We get connected to people like from all over the world. And I think that's the cool part of technology.
Yeah. No, for sure. Actually, so one of the company that I was helping sort of scale across Europe with from before, right? The one that sold for quite a lot. The founder of that has just started a new company, which is actually kind of like the future of work as well, right? So taking away boundaries from everything. So just saying like, why do you have to be geographically located to actually get a job? So like there's there's all of these new trends as well coming in from a business perspective, and then, as you say, from a friendship perspective. I mean, from one of my best friends in the entire world, I met once in Dubai. Yeah, obviously you, but I met once in Dubai, like when I was like 20 years old, and we literally met once, and then we like spoke pretty much like every week. It was kind of like a pen pal relationship, let's say, because we'd speak on Skype. I mean, we spoke about everything. I then surprised him for his wedding like 8 years later, and then he came back 3 months later for mine. Like it was super cool. Unfortunately, this was before I met you, Alvin. Otherwise, we would have hopefully had a similar story, and we've got 25 years ahead of us to do exactly the same. But I'm not that I'm getting married again. But just because the wedding was really expensive, not because no. But yeah, it's super interesting because I didn't see the guy for six or 7 years, and I would consider him like literally one of my closest friends in the entire world. Wow. He knows more about me than some of my other bestest friends who live around the corner from me.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's crazy. It's crazy. Now, yeah, I mean, and then if you take that onto like, as you say, like a business perspective, because we're talking on LinkedIn and stuff like that, we can talk about that. I mean, I think that the power of the people that you spend the most time with is incredible, as everyone probably knows. But it's more about, I think, I mean, from my side, like I speak 7 languages, right? And the reason why I speak 7 languages as a British guy is because I give a shit about what everyone else actually feels and what they talk about. So for me, it's really important. Sorry, I don't speak any. Well, actually, no, you speak English as your first language, or one of your first languages in Singapore. But the fact is, like, you can only really get to know someone in their true language. So from my side, I think we should talk a bit about language and how that helps you develop networks. I mean, how does that work out in Singapore?
Well, English is the primary language here. Almost everybody speaks English, at least as they can communicate in English. You get people that are more fluent, but I'd say that if you know English, you can communicate with everybody here. So that's something that we don't face internally, but I totally get you on the language, because as I traveled in that 2 years, I realized that even though you can communicate, you can't really grasp a lot of nuances if you don't know the native language. And you can it's so hard to get that depth of connection if you don't get there. So I totally get it. My question is though, like, I know I like languages and I know I appreciate languages, but it's so hard to learn. You speak 7. How do you do that?
Yeah, so as I say, I mean, obviously, I think I definitely I'm lucky that I have, like, I guess a good ear for languages. But from a perspective of like really wanting to learn, I mean, saying that, I haven't been that proactive recently. My wife is Iranian, and I haven't learned Farsi yet because she grew up in the UK since she was like 3. I really do want to learn Farsi. That's going to be my next challenge. I just haven't made the time, right? So it's kind of what these different what's it called? It's kind of what these different apps and programs tell you, right? The daily learning is really important. Now, for me, I mean, I daily learned the languages by trying to have a conversation in one of those languages, or when I say a conversation, like it could start from like really just nothing. It could start from just saying like, ¿Cómo estás? In Spanish, like on that day, right? Or in that week, right? And for me, that like engages your brain to think in that language that week. Now, if you're engaging your brain to think in that language every day or every week or whatever it might be, then you start picking it up. Another tip that I have for learning languages is again, it's along the same line. Let's say you wanted to learn French, right?
Yeah.
And you could go round to every French person you meet, or like when you're trying to have a conversation with someone in French, and just try and say a few words and stuff like that, which is cool, which will help you for sure because that'll engage you. But the biggest change that I find anyway when I'm trying to learn languages is if I say like, how do you say chair in French? Yeah. Now, if you say to someone, how do you say chair? Then you're saying the whole sentence in English, right?
Right.
If you learn in that language how to say, like comment tu dis or comment dit, like how do you say chair? Then each time you're saying comment dit chair, and then that engages your brain to think in that language as a primary language, rather than thinking of the language as like something that's unattainable and impossible to learn.
Wow. Okay. How would you rate your fluency in the 7 languages that you speak? I assume English has to be your native language, right? Like, outside of that,
English is completely native. Like I've always lived in the UK until 2 years ago, when I moved to Portugal.
Beautiful Portugal, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 years ago I moved to Portugal. I'm back in between Portugal and London quite a bit, apart from this year, of course. Yeah. But yeah. So when I moved to Portugal, I mean, Portugal, they have a very, very high standard of English. So it's very, very hard to learn Portuguese. Now, fortunately, I have a base in French and Spanish, which I speak fluently. And so I was able to force myself and force them to speak Portuguese to me quite quickly. And it's about also not worrying, right? Like, who cares if you sound stupid? Like if you're trying to, I think if you're making an effort in someone else's language, even if they speak English, I try and have that one extra conversation with everyone each time in their language. So German's a really good one, right? So German, it's so hard to learn. But the grammar wise is really hard to learn. But once you get it, it's pretty easy to sort of construct different. I think it's pretty easy to construct different sentences in German, right? And once you understand, and like quite a lot of words overlap with English, for example. So there's quite a lot of things that you can sort of get by with just sort of understanding the form of the grammar and then putting it together. But yeah, so German, all Germans speak really good English, and it's really hard to learn, and it's like known as to be like quite a like ugly language, let's say. I don't think it's so ugly. I think there's relatively few languages that are ugly. But yeah, it's known to be. So it's something that people don't necessarily learn that much, or don't have the confidence to learn. All of the Scandinavian languages are similar because all of them speak such good English. It's really hard to learn another language if you're British, when everybody speaks English, and when you don't have any you don't have any roots in other countries. Like you don't have a parent from somewhere. You don't have, our kids, for example, will grow up in Portugal, so they have a root here. Like it's easier to learn. So yeah, wow. I'd say that it's like super hard. Like and in those situations, you just need to have one extra conversation. So if I'm asking someone like, how you doing? Cool, I can have that conversation, and then they'll answer me in English, and then I'll try and add another. Getting a question coming in here, Alvin.
Oh yeah. Arthur is asking, like, how do you? What is the frequency that you found worked for you? Like, do you do it on a daily basis? You mentioned weekly, right? But you have 7 languages to juggle. Do you do that on a what basis?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So now I would say that like I probably am pretty fluent in 4 of those languages right now. I can increase that. So like I have some Italian friends, for example. I would say I've lost my Italian a little bit because I never learned it from the base. I never learned like the grammar. I still have, I mean, when I say I've lost it a bit, I still have friends in Sardinia. By the way, Sardinia is a beautiful country. If you haven't been, you should go. But I have some friends in Sardinia, so I speak to them, let's say every month or so, right? But recently I had to help them with a really, really tricky situation. They had to restructure their entire business. They had some real like deep problems with a family business that's over 40 years old. And I did everything in Italian to help them. So like, I still got it, let's say, but when I'm speaking to them, it's coming out a bit Portuguese, a bit Spanish, a bit whatever. And I'm like, oh, but I just got to go for it because number one, they don't speak English. So it was really like what's the word? I didn't have a choice, and I really wanted to help them. So that's I guess that's still in there. So how often do you have to practice? I mean, I try for Russian, for example, is really hard here because no one speaks Russian here. And so I guess I find myself sometimes like in my head having a little conversation with myself in Russian to sort of just make sure I have it on a weekly basis, for example, or make sure, even if it's just like keeping it there. It's a bit strange. Probably I haven't actually probably ever. I'm unveiling it live for the first time for my own consciousness. Like I never knew that. So no, I think that's and then German again. Like probably I have a few really good friends who are German. So when I speak to them, you know, actually one of my closest friends in the world again is German, but he speaks English to me the whole time, unfortunately. No, I'm trying to work out what language we're going to speak together.
I'm still trying to establish where I am in that best friend list of yours.
Well, you need years. You need years of like. You need years of grind. No, we have the fortunate. We've known each other for like a year and a half now, I reckon.
Yeah,
something like that.
Man, I'm gonna start speaking to you in Chinese, and then that's when you're gonna like start realizing that, hey, I'm gonna have a new pen pal.
Perfect. Ni hao ma.
Ni hao ma.
Wo hun hao.
Yeah, but how do you? So this is Arthur's question as well. Like, how do you manage accents? Because every language and culture has different accents, right? Do you pick up languages and their accents? And do you find that you do that code switching thing where you switch accents as you speak to the native speakers as well?
Yeah, so actually that's really interesting. So, I mean, I did, when I learned languages at school, right? Like I guess I picked them up pretty quickly. You had like, you always had that kid at school who like had a French mom or lived in France or something for like 5 years. So they obviously had the accent down to a T and was great. Now, yeah. I would always be the kid that was like just behind that kid because they had the 5 years, but the accent was something that I was able to pick up relatively easily. And actually that's even to say, like, even in Spanish, I would say like I have a pretty good accent in Spanish. Like Spanish people would think I might be Spanish or South American or something. Wow. Like they really do think that, right? The only time they know it's not is when I'm trying to do the ah, because I can't do that. I can't, my mouth, I've never trained my mouth to properly do that. So it's really, really hard to do that. Can I switch from one language to another? Yes. And what would I say is the most important thing to try and learn the different accents and languages? And so I'd say when I started learning languages, it was all about learning grammar and stuff at school, right? And then what I did afterwards is learn a lot about the culture. So try and travel there and try and speak to people, try and understand people. And so when I'm speaking Italian, for sure, like my hands go everywhere. I'm like, like I'll be like, oh, come stai? Oh. Yeah, for sure. Like my actions change completely in different languages as well, because it's all about not only your accent, but if you get really if you ingrain yourself into the way of communication of that language, you start maybe you start picking up the accent more. I don't know, but you really feel part of it. I feel like I deserve to be able to speak that language in the same way that the natives speak that language. I think that's what is really important. I think it's like, if you get yourself into a mindset to achieve your goal, you will achieve your goal. I actually started a startup around that a few years ago, but yeah.
I love that, because when
I'm just gonna turn the lights on, sorry. Keep going.
When I tell my coaching clients the importance of a vision and a roadmap and planning out your milestones, that's essentially what you're saying. Like, anything that we do in business, in life, relationships, family, whatever goals or desires that we have, as long as we have a clear idea of what it is and are able to communicate it properly in a structured manner, then it becomes a lot easier for us, our minds, to really work on what it takes to get there. And what you said just now about like the Italian language and the gestures, I think really answers the question posed by Denis. So Denis is asking, how do you think AI and deep tech will and won't change the value or the need to learn languages? And what you said just now, I think kind of plays to it. The fact that languages isn't just about the words, isn't just about, what Google Translate does. Yes, you might have like this software solution that can help you with the words, the grammar, whatever. But more so than that, language is a bonding of cultures, which is why I think you found it so useful to develop networks. Do you agree, or?
Fully agree. I can plump so I would say that, like, number one, I think it's the caring, right? It's actually caring about, I guess, meeting different people in different cultures, really understanding their culture and trying to really get a grip of it, right, and live it. And that can be through, words that you're able to say, pronounce. That can be through understanding their daily lives and their food, their drinks, all those sorts of things that really mean a lot to them, right? So that's definitely, and their family core values as well. That all of that definitely plays into like learning a language. It's a really good question. I think you kind of answered it, Alvin. So how will AI? I think AI has already sort of allowed you that. I mean, there's lots of different devices you can put in your ears and stuff as well that go with the flow and that understand what you're saying, and that allow you to obviously translate translate live, right, in real time. So that's awesome. Like, I think it's the same thing. I think it just accelerates the way that people that already know and care about a language can learn a language. So like, if you're one of these people that find it really hard to learn a language, like you mentioned earlier, Alvin, but you actually do give a shit, you actually do really care about that language, right? Yeah, exactly. So you made the effort. I remember you just plonked yourself in the middle of like a different country, and you would try. You wouldn't. I don't know what you did in terms of like learning the language, but I saw your behavior and your way that you wanted to just like immerse yourself in lots of different experiences and just go with the flow, right? Like that. That is the way to sort of learn life, let's say, which is awesome. And so I think you learn lots about culture and different things by doing that. But if you can imagine that you were able to do that, plus having this. I mean, I would say that having some sort of connected device that enabled you to talk in a very fluent way, that would just allow you to learn faster, in my opinion, because you'll remember a situation, you connect situations to different words, right? So you connect different, and then you'll be able to do that.
Absolutely. So I absolutely agree that there are actually two main areas that we need to consider here. So one is understanding, like the fact that you and I can communicate and understand each other depends on the words that are used. That's just one thing. If we can communicate and understand each other, that doesn't mean that we have empathy and we appreciate the differences or the similarities that you and I have. I think that is something that AI cannot do. Maybe not in the near future. That is something so deep that I think only humans can do at this point. We need to understand like cultures, and like you say, right? If we have experiences somewhere else, if we travel, if we come across a new culture, a new society, then what our reaction is or our action is to that, I think is more important than the words that are coming out of our mouth. Even in our native language, like, I mean, all of us here on this stream, we all have our native languages. And when we communicate with each other, I think understanding the words is just the surface level. Going down deep into understanding what is it that your recipient or the other party is saying, and what kind of motivations they have, and what drives them. I think understanding all of that and having a conversation such that you encompass all of that rather than just trying to get your point across. I think that's something that not enough people do, and that probably is something that AI cannot do at this point in time.
Yeah. So what it can do, though, for example, every time I used to go for a haircut, which, as you can see, is not possible anymore in Portugal because the hairdressers are all shut. But every time I used to go for a haircut in my local place in London, the guy there, he spoke Arabic and French. He spoke English too, fluently, but he spoke Arabic and French. So I would every single week have a little joke with him in Arabic because I don't speak good enough Arabic. Now, and then I would spend the whole haircut speaking to him in French. So that's an example of like taking advantage of an opportunity because I want to. Now, if I had an AI device in my ear that allowed me to speak Arabic the whole time to him, I probably would, right? So it's like whether you care enough to actually make the effort to speak it, and then if you have a helping hand, if you have a helping device, I mean, it's like anything with when anything's tech enabled and when anything has a tech tool, if you care about that thing and you want to do it, you have a piece of technology that can help you. You have a teapot that can help you make tea in the right way, right? If you care about it, you're gonna go buy a teapot and you're gonna use the teapot to make tea. If you don't care about it, you're gonna have a load of loose tea in your cup and you don't want to drink it, So like it can be taken to I think it can be taken to extremes like that. And I think if you really want to learn the language, I think the AI technology will just help people learn the language. Now, going back to, I think it was Denis's question. I think if you go too far, so if you have the mentality that you want the AI or the tech to do the job for you, that's when you fail, in my opinion. That's when you're not going to be able to ever learn anything, because you're just expecting it to do it for you.
Yes. Ben, what are the 7 languages that you speak?
So English, French, German, Italian, Russian, Portuguese, and English, French, Spanish. English, French, Spanish, German, Portuguese, Russian, and Italian.
How similar are Portuguese and Spanish?
Yeah, so relatively similar. Different sounds and intonation, different forms of communicating based on the culture, as we talked about before. But relatively similar in terms of the structure and the grammar. Same with French, actually. It's relatively similar. But yeah, that's more similar.
And how do you decide what language to learn? Is there a purpose behind like you learning a language, or is it just purely because of interest? Okay, so coming back to the business aspect of things, right? Like as business people, as entrepreneurs, like when we figure out, networking, for example, like networking is such a broad thing, and even like looking at the European market, there's so many languages that we can potentially explore. How do you prioritize, and what do you know? How do you know what languages to learn first?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends what you do, right? It depends what you want to do.
What was your experience like? How did you start with 7 languages?
Yeah, I just started like one day. I just decided to learn it, and the next day I spoke 7. No, how did I start? I think number one, it was sort of installed in me like at a young age to learn French, because in the UK, French was the second language, as in the language that you learn at school or whatever. Then they started introducing the fact that Spanish and German might be ones that you learn at school. So I just liked all of them. So I was like, and I was good. I was relatively good at them as well, which helped me like them more, right? So that's kind of, I guess, how it started. I learned Latin for 11 years. That definitely gives you a base, consciously or subconsciously. Probably for me, it's more subconsciously. I didn't like Latin very much. It was super hard. Like I didn't see the use of it. I didn't see the need for it, but I kind of like in the back of my mind knew that it was useful for all other languages, but I didn't really know why, and I couldn't really see the application of that until, I guess, sometimes if I'm searching for a word, some sort of understanding of what that word might be might come back from Latin, but I have no idea what that word is in Latin, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Okay.
Prioritizing German was definitely because I thought that like German was good for business. Like there's cool stuff happening in Germany. They're like really efficient. So I thought that could be a useful one. So I started learning German. Spanish, again, widely spoken language. I did actually try and learn Chinese for 3 months. Now the difference that I found between learning Chinese and learning all the other languages that I know is that the Chinese is very logical. It's not emotional. So it's like, like the word for, I mean, you can help me here because I can't remember, but let's just say like the word for beach is a mixture of the word for the sun and the word for the sea or something like that, right? Like, so it's like it's a very logical joining of words that create another word.
Wait, hang on. Isn't that German as well? Because I see German words that are like, a composite of many, many words.
It's not a logical language, no. Like there's so many different ways of structuring sentences, which I know that probably is in Chinese as well. But it's more like if you know to, I mean, yeah. Okay, sometimes I'm just thinking about the different words in German. Less logical, I would say. Less logical. Chinese is very logical and less emotional, right? So like I think that the logic behind Chinese and the way of constructing Chinese is something that didn't sit in my head. Like I couldn't learn it, I couldn't grasp it. It was really frustrating because I found it, number one, I obviously learning the other languages was a lot easier for me because of the links to Latin or the links to different languages I already knew. So it's easier for me to construct it. And the Romance languages sort of sing to you, right? So German, as you're saying, maybe it is a logical language as well. I'm not sure.
How about Russian then? Russian's a totally different language tree, right? Like, so we have like the Anglican languages, the Chinese, the Korean, the Japanese. It's based on like characters, and then there's Russian, the what is it? The Ukrainian. That's based in a different language tree as well.
Yeah, for sure. The Cyrillic alphabet. The Cyrillic
alphabet, right? Yeah,
exactly. And Greek as well. Greek's a random one, but is a really good one to learn. There's lots of people. I mean, I think Greek's a really fun one to learn because I don't speak Greek. But if you learn Greek, I speak a bit of Arabic, right? But if you learn Greek, like the Greek that you learn, you could you can really build strong relationships with the Greeks if you speak Greek, and it's really it's a really important one that I'm gutted not to learn. I speak a few words. I got engaged in Greece, I try. I have a few Greek friends, and I try again and say a few words, but it's super hard to learn if you don't have a base. And so Russian,
How do you pronounce gyro? Hero?
Gyros. Yeah.
I've always wondered because I've always ordered it from like
gyros.
Yeah, I was like, man.
So how you said what's the hardest, or how do I keep Russian going? So
is it Russian?
Russian's the hardest, yeah, probably.
Wow. Okay. How do you learn that?
I'm not a master of Russian at all. So I would say that Russian is I learned at a university for 1 year in a second, like a second course, let's call it. So I also was with a Russian lady for 3 years, but so that helped the culture side, right? Actually, she grew up in she grew up in the UK though, so or like she went to school in the UK. So in terms of like the culture and understanding that the way she thinks and the way that her family thinks, all those things, that's what helped me learn Russian. So like when I was on the tube in London after we broke up or whatever, when I was on the tube in London, I would hear people speaking different languages, and I would just try and engage. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't try and listen in on that conversation ever. Like I've got a innately unnosy character. Like I'm not like my wife is like the opposite of that. If she could read an email that would give her some information that she would love to know but didn't know and wasn't able to know, she would read it. If I wasn't meant to know it, I would just leave it. I would let someone, I don't care. Like I'm not like nosy like that, let's say. So I think it's a difference between listening to people's conversations to learn a language and just to listen to the way that the way they're pronouncing the words and the way that they're speaking to each other and the way that what they consider to be important in their culture. That's right. But disconnecting that to actually being nosy if you're not meant to be listening to them, that's a really interesting one that I never really knew as well until I just said it out loud now. So
well, we learn something new every day.
Well, so I bought a house last week. I haven't told you that yet, by the way. So I bought a house last week. So we're building like this amazing like permaculture.
I feel really low down in the best friend list right now, man.
Well, we were due to catch up today, right? So we're catching up today, and we're doing it live. So I bought a house, and opposite the house that we bought, there's another house, and there's a guy there who's from Ukraine, and he doesn't speak English. So I met him a while ago, and again, like I met him when we were looking at that house, because that house is also for sale. And we were looking at it, and I met him because he's living in like the housekeeper's house of that house, right? And so he's such a lovely person. I met him maybe over 1 year ago when we were looking at like a few different houses in the village. He was there when we went round this other house, and I basically connected with him, and I was like chatting to him in Russian because I wanted to speak Russian because I love practicing. But also because I wanted to sort of learn about him. And he speaks Portuguese, so I could take the easy route and speak Portuguese to him, which, by the way, sometimes I do now. But we still have a mixture of Russian and Portuguese when we speak to each other. So like I'll say words that I think of in Russian because I know it's the harder one for me to grasp. So I'll speak to him. I'll try and have that conversation in Russian as much as possible. And if I don't know a word, then I'll say it in Portuguese. Right. So like because I speak fluent Portuguese or close to fluent Portuguese, right? So I think that's an interesting one. So again, surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be able to improve you, or so going back to the topic of the conversation, which we can again deviate from completely. It's cool. I love this language if it's interesting to people. This conversation if it's interesting to people. But in terms of your network, who you're surrounding yourself by, like if you that's a perfect example of someone that I've surrounded myself with that will He's super interesting guy. He had a company with 20 employees in Ukraine. It was a carpentry company. He had a really horrible thing because he had no business insurance, and his whole shops, all the shops, the big factory basically burned down, and he lost everything. He lost everything, and he left Ukraine. He has a 21-year-old daughter in Ukraine, and he left Ukraine, and he's lived in Portugal, probably not necessarily legally, I don't know. For 20 years. So he's like he's been in Portugal for 20 years, and he's learned Portuguese. He speaks Portuguese, broken Portuguese, but he speaks better Portuguese than I probably do Russian. But he also speaks Russian. So that's a perfect example of like I saw him as a really interesting person for my growth when I moved to that village.
Okay.
There's not that much difference in the village is very local, and So being able to surround yourself with the right people and keep learning the things that you feel are important to you are really important in growth, right? So languages is one of the things that if you move to England, you're going to struggle to learn languages, right? Because everyone speaks English and everyone is arrogant in thinking that everyone should speak English, right?
Yeah.
That's a difference. Now, if you take that mentality, you're only ever going to learn English. If you take the mentality of there are, I don't know, but let's just say 30 different languages spoken on a daily basis in the center of London, then you have 30 different opportunities to speak that language once a day.
Yes, I think that's cool. I'm just going to answer a few more questions. Mark has asked, like, if voice tag, will impact business growth strategy. And I think this is kind of relevant, or this is kind of similar to the question that we answered just now. It's about tech. Mark asked this question. Lance is also asking a question about natural language processing. And I think it's very, very similar to what we answered just now regarding AI and tech. I think that was a question that was asked by Denis. And what we found was that in language, it's not just getting your point across. The communication, getting your point across, that's one thing, right? But more so than that, communication is also understanding the other party in terms of culture, in terms of empathy. Even in English right now, when we are speaking, you can have people that are blindly like ignorant or they don't even care about what you feel or you think. Now, I don't think those are very good communicators. And right now, I think AI is at a point of time, at a point where they are able to get past maybe the communication part, the actual words of your conversation, but it's nowhere close to actually understanding the nuances as far as culture, as far as understanding, as far as empathy is concerned.
I think it would be a shame if it ever did, to be honest. It will, of course, but it would be a shame. The reason why is because, like, as soon as we stop using tech as an enabler and we start replacing our brains with tech, then we start becoming stupid, right? And we start becoming just a vessel for tech to communicate with tech or to work with tech. And that's not only is it dangerous, but it's all as in dangerous for the human race, I guess. And that's why we see so many different films coming out around like robots taking over the world or whatever it might be. Look, it's inevitable in the way that we're developing tech that type of thing will potentially happen in the future, right? And if you look back at previous films of like, in the 70s when they thought that something that came out in a film would never ever happen, like a flying car or electric car or whatever it might have been. And now it's just like, yeah, of course we got electric cars. Of course we got self-driving cars, like these things do genuinely, it's what you said before. It's having a vision to achieve something. And actually, if you have that image in your head of what you're going to achieve, you're more likely to achieve it, right? I'm not going to say that you're definitely going to achieve it because you need a lot of hard work and it's super tricky. Same in tech, right? Same sort of thing. I launched an app that even now, like, it was around intimacy and understanding. The reason why is because I had a dating app. So I launched a dating app, we sold that, and then I launched an app around sort of intimacy and products, right? So what does that mean? That means that like we sold sex toys, right? But we sold sex toys that sort of sex toys are a taboo topic. So we try to take something that was taboo and make it non-taboo and make it easy for people to connect with. So we were the only app in the App Store that was allowed to make updates, because the App Store and Google Play Store block anything that's so-called profanity. Now, no, this wasn't profanity. This is, again, these things are using tech to enable you to have better relations or enable you to have different relations or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's like using tech to improve or enhance your performance. Now, if you just went and bought a sex doll or something, then you replace tech. You replace the physical thing with tech, and then I guess it's fine. It's not. It is what it is. I'm not saying, I'm not judging it, but I'm saying that you're going to lose that feeling for potentially for potentially having that with a person, because you see lots of people falling in love with the tech, or the doll.
So for all of you who just joined the stream, we've just gone from like networking globally to learning seven languages and the importance of it, to talking about sex toys. So welcome to the stream. Welcome to the conversation between Ben, Lambert, and myself. Sorry, Ben. Sorry to interrupt you, but please go on about sex toys. Like how? Okay, actually, never mind. I think let's go back to the conversation because it's almost nearing an hour. Let's talk about networks. How does one develop networks around the world? Like for us, I think it was a very serendipitous meeting. To give you guys some background context, I was part of a networking organization. I was in Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal, for an event, and I met Ben Lambert there. And since then, we have not been best friends. I'm kidding. We've been really good friends, and we've been staying in touch. And I think these serendipitous like connections allow us to build networks. Now, as a business person, how do you create intentional networks? Because you've had like connections around the world that you've actually managed to spin off opportunities, be it like businesses or networks or whatever it is, right? How does that happen? Is there a structure to it, or is there a plan that you follow?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about potentially the plans and then the benefits, or not the benefits, but like the outcome, right? So the plan is immerse yourself in as many different situations as you possibly can without killing yourself. When I met you, Alvin, or when there was like that the week for the networking association that you're part of that was here in Portugal, I was exhausted. I was working like crazy every single day, and even though I was exhausted, like my friend who's head of that association in Portugal, he would say like, come to this thing, like there'll be some interesting people there, you might learn some new things or whatever. I drove like half an hour to go to one place, or I would like make the effort to go out and like actually care about what the people are meeting, and that would give me energy. So I get energy off people. So that's like number one. It's like it's an interesting scenario I either get energy or I'm just like so exhausted that I don't even have that energy, right? So and that's actually weirdly, if I'm on my own, I have to have that energy. If I'm with my wife somewhere, for example, like she and my wife's a super empathetic person. She really understands people. Like she sucks in their bad energy to try and give them good energy, right? So she'll be the person that finds herself speaking to someone, during a lunchtime meeting, lunchtime event. And she'll speak to them. She'll speak one-on-one to them, and she'll really understand like where the traumas come from in their life and like how they're going to get over that. So she's like really, really, really empathetic and really sort of able to create that connection with people and to help them. Right? That's she feels like that's her mission, to help them, not on purpose, but it's just something that's happened. Now, so when she's with me, I'll actually, I'll let her sort of do her thing around the event or whatever, and I'll just chill a little bit more, and I won't necessarily make such a big effort. And I find I've seen it in myself a few times, and I kind of look at myself, I'm like, whoa, that's not the same person you used to be, right? So like the old me in London, for example, I would just go to all these different events. Lots of them were a complete waste of time. In general, there was probably one person that you met that might be interesting. You might learn one thing from each thing. Like my rule was always like try and learn one thing from each event or each situation that you go and immerse yourself in. So like as long as I was learning my one thing, I was like, okay, that was kind of useful because I learned my one thing. But lots of them, I found myself going to these different networking clubs, which were a bit creepy, a bit like scary at sometimes. Like,
wait, what kind of networking clubs are you going to? Has this got relation to the sex toy industry that you were talking about?
Everything comes back to sex, Alvin. You know that. So it's our predatory instinct to always have a connection with sex or relations, or like the feelings we give off, or the way that like let's say, you know, one of the ways that I might connect with you, for example, would be like watching how you're like talking to a girl or something and being like, hey dude, what about this? Or like, have you thought about this? Because she might like this, you know, like, so there's different ways to connect with people, but lots of it comes back to sort of sex and intimacy and like understanding people, right? So I think that's one of the trends of the different startups that I started, like the dating one. I started a matchmaking platform against Tinder, or when I say against Tinder, when Tinder was like going crazy, I was like, no, people need to match more. Like people don't want to just have flings and go on Tinder and meet like 50 people a day. And so I started interviewing people and finding out what people really wanted or supposedly wanted. People were telling me like, oh yeah, no, I really want like to meet the one. I was like, yeah, sure. Anyway, so I went out there. I built this like awesome algorithm-backed tech that allowed people to meet the one, and I gave them 3 matches a day. It was called clocked, right? So clocked. So everything was based on time. You get 3 matches a day based on the clock. But also, if you clock someone in the streets, it's like you see them walking by, right? So the whole idea was like giving people three people a day that you match with, and and the feedback from that, Alvin, can you believe it, was where are all the rest of the people? I'm like, what, you think there's more than 3 people on a daily basis that you are, you know, able to be matched with, that are within a 20-mile radius, that were within, you know, whatever? You think there's more than 3 people a day that I should be matching you with? Are you crazy? How many people do you want to, you know, match with in your life? Like, you only need 1.
Yeah.
Or more. Some people might argue, but
it depends. But
anyway, going back to your question, how did I do that around the world? So I immerse myself in really uncomfortable situations constantly. An example of that, when I was 18, I found myself in Guatemala because I allow the circumstance to take me somewhere. Does that make sense? So when I was 18,
this guy got to hear, like, cause it's not every day that you just suddenly find yourself in Guatemala. It's like,
so this is quite interesting, actually. Again, probably just saying this out loud for the first time, because I don't really know why I'm saying this, but it's quite interesting. So so I think like it goes as simple as allowing yourself to. I love wine, right? So I love wine, and you very kindly bought me a lovely bottle of wine for my birthday. We're closer to being best friends because of that. No, I'm joking. But no, your thinking of me around that was super amazing, and like the way that you thought of me and sort of wanted to, you know, bring happiness to me and my wife or whatever on my birthday is lovely, right? So that's bringing empathy into it. But what I was going to say is, I love wine. Now, I could stick to 1 bottle of wine that I love and go and buy it in the supermarket every day or in the wine shop every day or whatever. I don't do that ever, and that's not because I'm a complete cheapskate. I follow the different deals in the wine, for example, because it allows me to try new wines and try different things. Of course, I know what grapes I like in wine, and of course, like, I make a conscious decision. I won't just buy the wine that's on a deal. Like, I'm educated in wine, therefore I'm able to make a good decision around it, right? So being educated around something and then making a good decision is important, but going with the flow is really important. And going back to Guatemala, like, I was 18 years old. I didn't have much money at all. I was working 3 jobs, and I was like, where can I go to on my year between school and university, on the gap year? Where can I go and learn Spanish? So I wanted to learn Spanish, and I wanted to learn it better. So I decided that I wanted to go to South America, because it's awesome. Guatemala, by the way, is, again, I've traveled a lot. I've been to a lot of countries, also in South America and stuff. Guatemala is by far my favorite, over Mexico and over other ones, personally. And anyway, what happened there? So the reason why I chose Guatemala was because it was the cheapest course to that I was able to get, let's say, to teach or learn or be part of like a teaching program in Guatemala. Now, it's crazy that you have to pay to go and become a teacher or like be part of a school or be part of a teaching organization in South America. It was crazy to me that I was paying to go and give to people, but I was like, I thought to myself, I saw what was included. Let's say you get to live with the host family, you get to, they feed you. So I paid £400 a month, but compared to the next most expensive one was £800 for like Peru, and so I was like, I've never heard of Guatemala. I'd never really heard of Guatemala. Fact. And I made a decision to go to Guatemala because I was like, maybe the world's telling me something. Maybe it's a good thing to go to Guatemala, and maybe that's because it was cheaper that triggered me. But I went with the flow. Went to Guatemala, met some awesome people in Guatemala, learned about a whole other way of living and culture that I wouldn't have learned in lots of those other countries. And just went with the flow, right? Same thing with networking events in London.
Yeah. I love that. Wait, tell us more. So you went, this was 18. You were 18 years old. You went to Guatemala.
I was 18. Sorry, my husky is like getting all excited and needing to go. Zora, can you take him outside? Thank you. No, sorry.
All right. So
sorry. Go again.
Yeah. You were 18 years old, you went to Guatemala. I love that. And I think we as people, we should say yes to certain more interesting experiences more often. Now, I'm very interested and curious to find out from that one decision that you made to move and live in Guatemala for, how long was that? Like a month?
No, I went for, what did I go for? I literally can't even remember. How long did I go for? Maybe
I don't blame you, man. I mean, that
maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, I really can't remember. 3 months, maybe.
We can't blame Ben because he's already like, this is something that's been like 50 years ago, so he can't remember. All right, so
no, because I've been back to Guatemala a few times, right? I started so create roots in different cultures. Or different experiences that you do is really important, right? So if you want to learn more, create roots there. So I started a charity sports foundation for kids when I was there. So I was there for.
You went there for 2 to 3 months and you created a foundation?
Yeah, which then still basically I piggybacked. What I saw was like the kids that I was going and teaching in the school, they and this was creating a foundation when I didn't have any money, by the way, right? Like it wasn't like a financial foundation at the time. It was a structure that was off the back of a charity that's backed the kids to basically my concept was these kids are going from school straight to work with their parents every single day. They're like 7 years old and they're not being a kid. They're not experiencing different things. They go. The school starts at 6 a.m. It finishes at 1 p.m. and they go and work in the market with their parents. Super poor country or super poor environment that we were in, and they would go and work sort of with their parents and for food basically on a daily basis. And so instead of that, I brought in this idea of at least connecting through sport. Right? They didn't really play any sports. They didn't have any things. So basically, I every Tuesdays and Thursdays and some Saturdays, we organized like sporting activities. We did football for the boys and basketball for the girls, for example, right? So that was one of the things that I introduced that enabled people to connect more over sport and hopefully brought a lot of happiness to the kids, right? And yeah, it was a really interesting experience. And as you say, maybe I was there for 4 months. I really can't remember. I've been back a few times because of that, right? So I went back for like 1 month some years later. How long was I there?
Oh, so in terms of How have you found that to be helpful in business?
Yeah, so
attitude of just going with the flow, not necessarily Guatemala, but like the attitude of like really going with the flow. How has that helped you in business?
Got you. So, I mean, the easiest one for me to point out is the sex toy company, right? So, so I started that when everyone was like, don't start a company in that industry. It's really hard to raise money. It's really hard to do this and that. I mean, it was really hard to raise money. It was really hard to do all those things. But I love the challenge of it, and I love trying to, we were the world's first in so many different things because of that. And that was really cool. And that's kind of like defines like our attitude of like going and trying to do it. Actually, in the end, we had an exit that was, you learn more about the things you fail in life as well. I really believe that. So in the end, we had an exit that was set up to go through with a very large company in the UK. And it failed because the head of digital from that company was fired 1 week before the deal was meant to go through. They then put it on hold, the deal on hold for probably 6 months. It burned me out completely. I lost all the money, or wasn't able to keep the company going, and we failed. Now, but that could have gone a bit differently, and we could have sold for multi-millions of dollars, literally, which was on paper that week. So it's so interesting how these different situations form you, and going with the flow is really important because you can't really control some of these things. I couldn't control that. I literally could not control that. So the things you can't control, don't try and control and go with the flow. The things that you can make good decisions on, around educated decisions, like picking which wine you want to drink, based on the way that the world is pointing you to try different wines, then pick the one that you make an educated decision on. Same thing with companies, right? Like I decided that like I didn't like the way that education was working. So the world pushed me towards being like an interim co-founder or interim COO or CRO for an edtech company that was between London and San Francisco. So I was going through a tricky time, and that the world was like, I want to improve the way that people learn, and then this opportunity arose, so I went for it. It wasn't necessarily the best paid one, but it was the most interesting one to help me learn more at the time.
So Lance has a really cool question. Like some time ago, we were talking about vision. Now with a vision, you kind of know the direction that you're headed towards. And I love the question posed by Lance, because essentially, if that's the case, then maybe you can't go with the flow anymore, right? Is that what you've experienced, or is there a way that you can tell us more about like balancing these two things, having a strong vision in one direction versus like going with the flow when stuff happens?
Yeah. So so I think the biggest thing that I can say, and I do acupuncture once a month, and I said this to my acupuncturist a few days ago. Having a strong belief system that's installed in yourself around what you believe and what you are able to control, and having that as a really strong system that's inbuilt in you, allows you to make better decisions around everything else, right? So what I mean by that is, like, I can go to bed every single night very calmly, knowing that I'm doing nice things for my friends, trying to help different people, doing my best to try and do these things, and I sleep very calmly at night. I know I'm not screwing people over. I know I'm not. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
So that's like a start process, right? So that's my core North Star that helps me make these other decisions. Now, same thing with business, right? So I have a North Star in business of what I want to achieve, or what when you're starting a business, you have that North Star, you have that mission. That's what's really important to do the Simon Sinek who, what, why. Why. I added who, by the way, for that as well. So I added the fourth one. So it's why you do something. It's important why you do something, then how you do it and what you do. But I added who you do it with, right? So
you're such a social person.
So
networking and networks and who you know, and right.
So I think everything comes back to the who. Everything. So I mean, again, like I think that I think that people help you, people direct you in life. So going back to Lance's question, is like, is like, obviously you have to stick to a vision. Obviously you have to focus completely on you have to be obsessed with your company. You have to focus on the mission. You have to do all that thing. Now, right now, I'm not doing any networking at all. Right now, you know, we started a business. We actually started helping governments with medical equipment last March, and that was for free. We started a social enterprise, basically that evolved into me working 20-hour days on a daily basis, and really essentially really being completely focused on this, but also needing to make some money out of something, right? So, but at the same time, what I saw in the market was that everyone was taking advantage of the situation, or people were taking advantage of the situation. So I thought, well, I'm a tech guy. I'm like a transparent guy. Let's be transparent. So my new thing was, look, this is what we're going to help you to do. We're going to help you to stop getting scammed. We're going to help you to stop getting screwed over. We're going to find you the best products. We're going to help you do this. This is what I'm going to be earning because I'm being transparent with you. Are you happy with that? Cool. Yeah, let's move forward. So, you know, it was really that change in mentality that allowed me to move forward on that. So I think having a strong, going back to the question, like having a strong vision is really important. Going with the flow is also really important. Seizing opportunities is important. And seizing opportunities for your business is important. One lady that does this really well is the founder of Baby to Body. So Mel is a friend of mine, and she's they're killing it now, right? And she had a vision actually similar to. Do you remember I told you about Apollo, Alvin? The app for the Apollo is the app that I started, or the platform I started for men to talk about their physical and mental health.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I started Apollo to help men talk about stuff because we don't talk about stuff, right? We're innately not good at that. So and so what that does, and like so helps men on their journey. Now Mel, it's a really interesting example because Mel did the same for women and called it Baby to Body to help women start through pregnancy, but then for the whole life, right? So it's like an app that's developed or a platform that's developed for the whole lives. Now, but she's really good at seizing opportunities that she sees. She'll leave 10% of herself out there to get random opportunities and just to execute on them. Now, going back to the medical stuff that I was talking about, I went away from tech completely, right? And I haven't been in tech so much, I haven't cared so much about networking because I don't really have time to do it, right? So like I'll speak to my friends. Now this just so happened to be speaking to my friend and helping and doing a networking show, or like, you know, enjoying a bit of a live show and enjoying some of the questions, which have been great. But like, you know, I haven't been doing this at all because I don't focus on it at the moment, and I don't value it as a thing that I need to do in my life. I don't need to improve that side of my life right now. My life, what I need to do is I need to focus and execute the business better, right? So I think it's all about priorities, and it's all about focus, and it's all about having that North Star that you have. So within the business, you can apply the same thing, Lance. So having a North Star for your business, having a mission statement, having something that's, you know, that's going to guide you is the most important thing. Because you're going to get there if you have that focus. But going along with the different reasons and ways to get there is really, really important, because you can't force things in life. You really can't. And then knowing when to stop is the most important thing in business. So over the North Star, knowing when to stop is the most important thing. I've started 20 different companies, and only 3 of them have been successful. And I've lost a lot of money and a lot of time on the other 17, and I've taken away learnings from each of them, right? So the point is like knowing when to stop is probably my most important talent for sure. And that can be said on a minor scale in like knowing when a partnership is going to be completely waste of time, so you don't focus and you don't spend any time on it, because actually after a few behaviors that you notice, or a few you can notice those behaviors. Either it's with a person, so you can understand their behavior from a cultural point of view, and you know it's just not going to be a fit, or something else. Don't make excuses for yourself. Just go with it, even if it seems to be like the wrong decision logically. It's probably not going to work because of that empathy that Alvin was talking about earlier, but also because of just like the way that the world is going to direct it afterwards. Sorry, that was a bit of a long example, but yeah, I guess like yeah. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, I love that. That's like in the 5E skill engine that I use to coach my clients with. The second principle is envision. Now, what is envision? Envision is more than just thinking about the future. The future will always change. And that's why having like an idea of the future is great, but coming up with a roadmap, telling your team about that, having the company operate and execute on that, that's what your plan is. But with all plans, things will change. Last year, we had a great example of it. You could have a fabulous business strategy in January of 2020. By March of 2020, that plan would have gone to shit. You will have to change everything. Now, if you were absolutely focused on what the vision will be and should be, and had no leeway or no flexibility at all, you would have, you have been in real trouble. But I think that flexibility that you mentioned, the flexibility to know on a fundamental level, what is it that you're looking for, the beliefs that you have, and having that guide you to developing or pivoting towards a new strategy or a new direction, I think that's essential. And that probably is the difference between, balancing between having a strong vision and also like going with the flow. You have to have both, and the balance is something that we have to find.
I'm gonna post something in the chat here. How do I do it? Is it just private chat, or how do I make it go to everyone?
So this we are using StreamYard right now, so it's a little bit.
Okay, you can post that if you want on the stream. You received that, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so you can post that if you want. But basically, I wrote an article. I wrote a Medium post. Actually, the only one pretty much I've ever written. I'm not really not big on social media. I don't use Instagram. I don't use Facebook. I use LinkedIn because I like helping people take advantage of opportunities. But that's literally it. I don't use Twitter, and I don't really write on Medium, or I sometimes read Medium stuff, right?
Right.
But
sorry.
But this, no worries. But this was something that I was, I guess, doing a lot of like research, and so like what makes a good CEO, right? What makes a good CEO of the company? And I think I think like I communicate that well through this article, because it's basically like
cool.
There's 7 simple steps to becoming a good CEO of a company, and it's talking about some of the things you were just talking about there. And I think it's definitely the biggest thing that allowed me to become a good CEO was this knowing that I'm always trying to do the right thing, and being able to sleep at night knowing that, right? Don't get me wrong. I had multiple nights of not sleeping and going through burnout, and I've been through every single, literally going through burnout, by the way, which was not very fun. But I've had all sorts of different experiences around that. Especially when you're failing, is like the worst time to deal with those things. But still knowing that core belief that you're doing all these things for a reason is really important. And actually, one thing that's important, actually, going back to Lance's question. So I think relating business to those times in life that you think that whatever you're doing is like completely impossible, and you make it happen. That could be as simple as like, you have an injury in sports, but you want to just like walk from here to there, and your leg's not working, and you make it happen, right? Or could be as simple as like, learning how to cook because you can't cook, and you learn it and you achieve it, right? So any of those times where you've achieved something great that you consider to be great for yourself, try and put that into the perspective of like, I was able to achieve that thing that I did not think I could achieve, right? I was able to achieve the impossible, and if you then maybe this is a false belief from me, but I don't really care because it's helped me guide me, right? Like I used to play professional rugby, and there were many times in a rugby match where we were down, we were out, whatever, and I did something that allowed us to win, for example, like along with the team, but like I was the kicker of the ball, right? So I was able to affect an outcome. That's, if you put yourself in the ability to, if you're the CEO of the company, you are in a position to affect an outcome. You're part of a team. The team is going to be what drives you. Surrounding yourself with the right team, by the way, going back to Lance's question, is really important. Really important. I haven't slept very much. But being able to be in a position to affect an outcome and taking advantage of that, seizing on that, and believing in yourself that you're able to do that is really important as well, right? We were able to raise money for that company that was impossible to raise money on. I was able to kick that ball over the post to win the game or to draw the game when it looked impossible, right? So that inner belief, whatever those things are for you individually, is super important to do. That can be something super small. That can be, I'm really bad at DIY and I don't know how to make tables. Go and buy a table, do it, build that table, and then you'll feel this sense of accomplishment and take that with you and apply that to your daily life.
Cool. I love that. That's essentially coming up with a plan, knowing the roadmap. We are all lost in the jungle somewhere. Like no matter what we want to do in business, in life, in family, in personal life, whatever it is, we are all lost in the jungle. We need a guide, a map, a compass, things that will help guide us to the things that we want to do. And I think finding that is essential. That's essentially, Ben has referred to that, right? Like how do you actually perform as a leader? Because as a leader, you need tools. You need not just knowledge, but you need the tools, the know-how.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much responsibility that you have right now. How do you make all of that happen? And more so, not just based on who or what you are, but also based on the team that you have. It's not just yourself as an individual, but like the many people that you have that's under you right now that you have the responsibility to lead. So I think those are really good points. And that's a great, like, I think, ending note to our conversation. We've already spoken for more than an hour, and I think the time just flew past. So hopefully everybody here got great value from Ben's sharing. I really like the fact that he has, let's do a quick recap. Like we first started talking about networking, and Ben told us that he actually speaks 7 languages fluently.
Not fluently, 4 fluently.
4 of which are fluent, 3 of which are probably near fluent. I can't even speak 2 languages fluently, so that's incredible. With languages, I think it helps create that kind of connection with people to make networking even more intimate. And I think this goes above and beyond any technological solutions that can exist right now or even in the near future. So if you guys are looking for networking, I think that's one of the greatest things that you can have. Not necessarily learning a language, that's a great thing to do, but what it entails. Ben's philosophy is more of really being understanding, really being empathetic, and assimilating the other party's culture and beliefs, rather than just having the words to express yourself. So I think that's really important, and that probably is what makes Ben such a great friend to everybody. We ended off the conversation talking about vision, talking about going with the flow. I think that's really important because in business especially, there's so much that can happen that we are unable to plan for. And knowing how, or having the flexibility to respond so that we have this leeway, or so that we are able to capitalize on opportunities or to pivot so that we can actually move ahead. I think that's essential. So hopefully everybody really got great value from this. I'm just gonna drop a screen where you can follow up on both of us. I have two things that you can follow up on. I have a super scaling book that I'll be publishing by June this year. If you're interested in that, go to that link, superscaling.com/book. You can put in your email address, and I'll be emailing out the book, parts of the book as I finish it, so you can read it as I write it, and you will also receive the bonuses that I have available when I am ready to publish the book again by June this year. And if you're interested, the masterclass is open. The masterclass is running this February. Go check out the link, alvinpo.com/masterclass. I don't run it often, and every time I run it, people are saying that I should increase the price. I'm providing too much value. And don't take my word for it. Go to that page, check out the video testimonials. If you are looking to scale up your business, if you are a 6-7 figure entrepreneur, this is something that I'll highly recommend you to check out. Finally, Ben is, like he said, not very active on Facebook, but he will absolutely reply you if you connect with him on LinkedIn. So go search out Benjamin Lambert on LinkedIn, add him, drop him a message. And hopefully like great things develop, because I think the one thing that I took away from today's talk is really developing the networks without expecting stuff. I think too many times.
That's really important. What you just said is really important, right? You asked me like what if I wanted to promote anything or do anything on this show, and I don't want to expect any. I don't expect anything, and I don't mind. I do it because obviously you're a friend and I want to help, but I want to be involved in what you're doing, and I think that in any case, you've got to know me a lot better today than probably you knew before, because in general conversations, you don't really get to ask these questions, and you don't really get not interviewing someone, right? So I think what you just said is really important. Like, not expecting something back is the most important thing. So expect to learn one thing. That's a great target to have of every single situation that you have. Expect to learn one thing, but don't expect anything back. You don't need to go to a networking event to meet an investor to get investment. No, that's not going to happen. Go to the networking event to learn one thing. You might meet an investor who might invest in your company. You might meet a partner that might be a great partner for you. Like, don't expect anything. That's really important, Alvin. It's a really good point.
Right. I love that.
It's the way I live, by the way. That's the way I live the whole time.
And Ben is not lying when he says that. Like, I've known Ben for a few years now, and I absolutely believe that he is really giving. And I think that naturally puts him into the top of mind when people start thinking about stuff. When I think about Portugal, if I need anything with Portugal or the UK, guess who I have on the top of my mind? And if you guys are networking for business, I think that's a mindset that you must really start to embrace.
Fully agree.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys. We spent like more than an hour, almost an hour and a half together. Thank you so much for your time, Ben. And I really appreciate it. Like what you said, I think I learned a lot about you, even more than our conversations that we've had. So thanks so much for the time. And I really hope that you guys on this stream got as much value as we did from like this conversation. So thanks so much for spending a Saturday afternoon with us. Thanks so much, Ben. It's early morning for you. Thanks for waking up for this call. Thanks, and we'll definitely stay in touch, Ben. Stay in touch, guys. If you like this stream, just drop a like, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button. Share this with people that might appreciate it. All right. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.